Whoa, 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 whoa.
What's the problem?
This
What's the matter?
This is not a Jet show.
So what?
So how about this?
Manning lobs it. Burris alone. Touchdown, New York.
Oh, come on. I don't want to hear this.
Why not? Super Bowl champions.
Doesn't matter. I just don't want to hear it.
What do you want to hear?
How about some Mets?
Hey, if I can find one good thing that happened to the Mets, here we go.
Home run. Mike Piazza. And the Mets lead 3-2.
Oh, yeah. It's got to be, I'm sorry. We all can't be like the Yankees.
Oh, speaking of.
This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home run. Don Mattingly.
No. God, I can't believe I just said that. All right, well, listen. How about a little Nets?
If I have to.
Kid, the jumper to win it. He got it.
I can't take it. I can't take it anymore. It's been a second. I can't take it. How about some Knicks?
Oh, yeah, big spenders. Can't win a playoff.
Fair enough.
Houston pops out up top, down the lane, running jumper off the front rim, and in.
I guess we should talk a little hockey, no?
Can you believe I watch hockey anymore?
They watch the Rangers.
Well, if you have the Rangers, you gotta have some violence.
Yeah, no, they didn't have YouTube in the 80s.
All right, let's get the show started.
Here we are, Polar Opposites. Hello and welcome to the Polar Opposites podcast. I'm polaropposites.podbean.com. We're also on iTunes, and we are also on the Twitter at Polar Opposites 1. I'm Matt Stevens. Alongside me, as always,
Is Craig Moffat.
and Craig.
Maddie, how you feeling, man?
Oh, doing all right. Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Surviving, man, surviving.
You know, we had when last we met, the Yankees were good, and then they were bad.
They'll
Now
be
they're
fine.
okay again.
They're gonna win the World Series.
And
we're all
will you
good.
stop?
We're all good.
There's literally no way. Like, you can't say that and think that the Dodgers aren't going to win the World Series right now. Can you?
I can.
I mean, like, come on. Look what the Dodgers did to the Mets.
No, I think I can. I think it's definitely a possibility. I mean, you ended the road trip on a high note, right? You get the 8-1 win on Sunday with Cleveland. Aaron Judge hits one home run, so now New York media is like he's back and he's bad and everything. Now you got a series with the Blue Jays before you have a monster series with the Red Sox. I easily expect the Yankees to take 5 out of 6.
He's such a jerk. He's such a jerk. 5 out of 6. What the hell's wrong with you? Seriously, what the hell's wrong with you?
I'm not
Out of
wrong.
your mind? You're wrong. It's like, it's like saying that opinions are wrong. Like, you can say that, but to say that that's going to happen when we have a team right now that is literally set up to win 170 billion games.
Yeah, but that only means that they're destined for a colossal fall.
Yeah, okay, that's what that means. You mean like the Mariners? Or like the 98 Yankees.
I think they're definitely due for something, right? Nobody can say that peak for so long.
They just dismantled your team over the
And
weekend,
then,
by the way.
of course, they did.
I mean, it wasn't
Come
even.
on, it wasn't even a.
It was.
What I think what I loved the most was how. Listen, don't get me wrong. Daniel Murphy's been a Met killer and everything. But here's the best part, though, right? I love how now people like Alex Rodriguez are saying, man, the Mets really shouldn't have let Justin Turner go. And when Justin Turner was on the Mets, he wasn't that good of a ball player. He only got better when he went to the Dodgers, and now he's just, now he's a great third baseman. And the thing is, and that's what was interesting. Remember how we talked during the offseason last year, baseball's offseason?
Yeah.
How, like, we were talking about how certain players teams were interested in certain players, but we never heard a thing about Justin Turner. And he was an unrestricted free agent. There was not
Nobody
one
took a
team
shot.
that took a shot on him, and he wound up going to the Dodgers, and he wound up going back to the Dodgers, which, kind of led me to believe that there was always like kind of like a, just like a, what's the term I'm looking for? Like,
He always
deal
knew he
in the
was going
works,
there,
yeah.
but he wanted to check out everything else.
It was almost like it was pretty much a foregone conclusion he was staying in Los Angeles because no team even met with him, let alone offered him a contract.
It's because that just, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. But here's the problem the Mets have. They lost 2 guys who are batting like 350, who could be playing second base and third base for them right now, and they got literally nothing back for either one of them.
Of course.
That's the thing you got to look at. Forget about that they're gone. Like that happens all the time. There are good players leave teams all the time.
Yeah.
But the fact that the Mets got literally nothing. They didn't even get a draft pick from Murphy, did they?
I don't think they offered him the qualifying deal.
Right.
I'm almost
so
certain
they
didn't.
literally, for both these guys who have, let's be fair, if they were playing second base and third base for you, you'd probably be a lot better than you are right now. And you got nothing for him. And that's
Well, the problem is that we wouldn't. Turner wouldn't even be playing. He'd be a guy without a position because at third base, Wright would still be there, but Wright's injured. You know, everybody forgets that.
No, I know, but I'm saying that like he could have been the backup, he could have been the utility guy, and then when Wright inevitably, we all know, got hurt, he would have played third base forever. You ready to get it? You ready to get it started?
Yeah, you got anything else you want to like lay on? Throw the knives throw the old salt in the wound about the Mets?
We're gonna do that in a second.
I mean,
we're gonna do that with the Jets in a couple minutes.
Okay, here we go. The 4 local topics of the week. Here we go. Number 1, the Yankees managed to split with the Indians in their 4-game series over the weekend after dropping 2 or 3 to the Tigers. The pitching has been pretty strong, but now hitting is the issue with Gary Sanchez, Aaron Judge, and recently acquired Todd Frazier all struggling at the plate. Sanchez has also struggled behind the plate, which led to Girardi calling him out in a post-game press conference for his defensive miscues, as well as being benched for Sunday's 8-1 victory over the Indians. The Yankees opened a 3-game series in Toronto before heading home for a monster series with Boston for first place, which they should have wrapped up by Monday. Matty, what I want to know is, why is Sanchez struggling, and should he be the permanent DH for Austin Romine?
No, he shouldn't be the permanent DH because we saw that he is capable of being a very good catcher. We saw it last year. He's got a good arm behind the plate. He can block. He can throw guys out. Calling a game to me is ebb and flow. Some guys are good at calling games, but it's also like, is your pitcher amenable? Is your pitcher a Roger Clemens? He wants to throw what he wants to throw, or are they willing to say take an idea from you?
Sure.
The hitting thing though is. It's the same problem that Aaron Judge is having and Todd Frazier's having. It's that breaking ball, the slider, I guess, is what they're calling it nowadays, that sort of starts at the middle of the plate, like when the pitcher throws it, but it ends up in like the left-handed batter's box on the ground.
Yeah.
And they all swing at it because it looks like a fastball out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
So they all swing at it. The other thing, too, is I can say this for Gary. He stopped hitting the ball to right center. And that's what he needs to do. Him and Judge. Now, Judge's home run the other day was right center, so it was a good sign from him that he's starting to do that again. But you watch Gary, he has got a home run derby in his head. And I'm not saying that's the effect of the home run derby, but he's swinging so hard on every pitch. He doesn't need to do that, and he's pulling off the ball. They're both pulling off the ball. Todd Frazier's a bad hitter. Like, I don't want anybody to think that I think shouldn't be in the Major League Baseball or anything like that. But I've seen enough of Todd Frazier with the Reds. He had the 1 year where he won the home run derby. He was really good. But mostly he's batted like 250 and below. He's not a good hitter. He's just not. He's a very good defensive player. He can hit a couple home runs. He's a good guy in the clubhouse apparently, but he's not a great hitter. As for the thing though, you can't make Sanchez a permanent DH because in today's baseball, having a permanent DH really hamstrings you. It really does. And when Matt Holliday's on the team, you can see it because he has to DH every day. So giving Aaron Judge a day off or giving Gardner a day off or giving Sanchez a day where he can just DH, it's harder to do. So I think in the perfect Yankee universe, I think Romine would catch 3 days a week.
Right.
Sanchez would catch 3 days a week. And Sanchez would DH 2 of those days and get a full day off one of those days.
Okay.
But I think it's just I also think, look, the guy, he had a super introduction to Major League Baseball last year. What, he had 20 home runs in 52 at-bats or 52 games or something, whatever it was. 52 at-bats is crazy. And then you have all the expectations this year. And then he's hurt right off the bat. Like third game of the year, fourth game of the year, he gets hurt. And then he misses a month.
Okay.
So he's trying to make up for it. Will he come out of it? I don't know. I think he's too good a hitter not to come out of it. But if I might try and go back and find the tape because what I said about Gary Sanchez was if he bats 280, has 25 to say 30 home runs, and say 80 RBIs, I'll be totally happy with that. And with the exception of the home runs being a little light, but he missed a month, he's going to probably do that.
Okay. I got nothing.
Wow, you don't get nothing?
I told you what I think of the Yankees. I mean,
will you stop?
Honestly, I mean, with the young players with the Yankees, it's basically they're going to hit their walls. I mean, that's pretty much the best way you could describe it. Aaron Judge is hitting it. Aaron Judge is hitting it now, but maybe the timing is good because maybe towards the end of the year into the postseason, he'll go in on a hot streak. That's definitely a possibility. And the same thing with Sanchez. I got no issue with Girardi chewing him out. I think that this is what Girardi does. I mean, maybe it's just a way to light a fire under him.
Well, it's
and that's fine. And that's what managers should be doing. I mean, he's a young guy. He knows what he has to do. He knows the job he has to do. And, so be it. So he struggled
it's
a bit.
lack of focus.
Yeah,
right? It's lack of focus.
But he struggled a bit. But I think it's more of, a lot of players go through this. It's not really anything out of the ordinary or anything, drastic. And for a guy like him, he's been injured for a little part of the season. I'm not saying the injuries are playing are a reason.
No.
But I'm saying that, he's still having a pretty solid season, and I'll take it from a hitting catcher. I mean, there aren't many good hitting catchers in the league, right?
Not many that hit fourth.
And that's what I'm saying, So
or who have the ability to hit fourth. Let me put it that way. And
so
he's not necessarily hitting like that. But
sometimes I also think it's a case of the expectations are just way too high for a guy like Gary Sanchez. He came in last year, like you said, 52 games, hit, 20 home runs, 25 home runs?
20.
Okay. So those are high expectations.
That at 300.
And that's what I'm saying. And when you take a guy like that, and now you put him in a 162-game season, the expectations are going to be really high. Think about next year with Aaron Judge. I'm not even talking about this year. Okay, he already has, 33 home runs this year?
34?
34.
I think of 34.
Okay, 34 in about, 120 games I think they've played so far, give or take. I mean, I don't know where he's going to finish, but that next year it's going to be, again, it's going to be expectations that these guys maybe have a little bit of a tough time trying to catch.
Let's be fair. If Aaron Judge only finishes with 40 home runs, the expectations...
It's still a great season.
It is, but 40 home runs for him should happen
he should have hit 50.
No, but I'm saying 40 home runs for him should be a norm. Right? Wouldn't you agree with somebody like that? I mean, let's be fair. If he puts bat to ball, it's probably going out at most parks.
Now, in a year, I mean, maybe there's more game film on him. Maybe teams figure him out a little bit. I'm not saying it's going to result in a huge regression. I think it's the exact opposite. But again, it's that's the thing about baseball a lot of times is I always feel like it needs to evolve. So if pitchers can figure you out, then the batter's got to figure out ways to kind of, counteract the pitching.
Well, and for Aaron Judge and Gary Sanchez, they both started to get annoyed because they were getting walked. And so if you watch every at bat of Aaron Judge in the first half, or it was a little bit before the first half, he started to go downhill. But if you watch all those at bats, that ball that he's swinging at now didn't even flinch. Would just take it as if he knew the pitch that was coming before it came. And now he's swinging at it because he was getting a bunch of walks, and these guys get impatient, right? They get impatient.
And now here's the thing. You're going to have another bat to worry about eventually because Clint Frazier's been tearing it up. And I mean,
he's been in a little bit of a slump recently, but yes. And look, the good thing, though, is that Holiday's out, right? And I don't say that's a good thing, but he wasn't hitting, and he has a back problem, so that's fine. You're probably going to get Aaron Hicks back within the week, I would imagine, which is left-handed power that the Yankees actually are lacking at this point. They have left-handed hitting. They don't have left-handed power. So, you have Gardner Ellsbury, Gregorius, that sort of thing. And this entire time, they haven't had Castro.
And he's due back at the end of the month.
And he's due back at the end of the month. You're talking about a guy who's batting .310 for them at second base with 15 home runs. I mean, that's not losing a terrible player. That's losing a really good player.
Yeah.
Now, Torreyes has been good. But the most important thing is this. As you said, baseball is you do something good, they figure out how to stop you from doing that good. You figure out how to then start doing things good again while they're trying to figure out how to make you not do good things again. So Aaron Judge and Sanchez now have to figure out what they're doing and change it. The first thing would be literally when you have two strikes and the ball's sort of coming in the middle of the plate and it looks like a fastball, know that no pitcher in the history of the world would ever throw you a fastball right down the middle of the plate at 0-2.
Yeah.
Just take a guess. And you know what? I wouldn't be angry if for a couple times he took a couple fastballs for strike three down the middle because he thinks at 0-2 or 1-2 it's going to be that pitch.
Yeah.
And if you're a pitcher...
Or he thinks it's going to be a pitch they waste.
Right. And if you're a pitcher and you do that, respect. Because if he catches on, he's going to launch it.
Yeah, the only person who does things like that is like Rick Vaughn, though.
Yeah, wild thing. Ready for number two?
Sure.
Number two, the Jets suffered a death blow to their receiving core as Quincy Enunwa was lost for the season after suffering a neck injury during Saturday's practice. Enunwa became the team's number one receiver after they released both Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker in the offseason. Enunwa is basically the elder statesman of the Jets receiving corps, and with him gone for the season, Robbie Anderson, Sharon, is it Sharon?
Yeah, it's the same.
Or Sharon?
Sharon, I think.
All right, Sharon Peak will most likely start the team's first preseason game Saturday against the Titans. Craig, what I want to know is, who are these freak? No, okay. Where do the Jets go from here at wide receiver?
Nowhere. They can't really go anywhere right now.
Right.
I mean, it's only the first week of. It's only been 2 weeks into training camp, and I take this as a cruel joke,
Right?
Because it's a freaking cruel joke.
brutal.
Because, like, you know, Enunwa, the way I was reading about it was he was trying to catch a pass from Hackenberg, and like he leaned forward, and I guess he fell right on his face, and then like I don't know.
I'm sure it just.
And the thing was, this was an existing condition.
Right.
It wasn't just like something that just popped up on Saturday. Apparently, he had this issue a few months back, I think during mini camps, and it flared up and it got really worse. At this point, there's nothing you can do because no team is. You're not going to trade for a receiver now. You're going to wait till teams cut receivers, and then maybe you pick up a veteran or something like that there. Now, who will be available? Well, again, that's a tough call. The first person that came to my mind as a possible cut somewhere along this, first few weeks of training camp or into the preseason is Jordan Matthews from the Eagles, because he's kind of he's like the fourth receiver right now behind Nelson Aguilar, who's apparently been having an amazing camp, Torrey Smith, and Alshon Jeffrey. Now, that could all change, obviously, with the preseason games. And there were a few others.
Also, Jeffrey's been hurt a lot in the last couple of years. So.
There were also a few that I saw, too, like Amendola may get cut from the Patriots, Sammy Coates maybe get cut from the Steelers. I mean, or traded, because the depth is so, like, these teams are loaded at certain positions.
Could you imagine? Like, but that's Patriots, right? Don't care. Amendola, two Super Bowls.
Listen, I got Brandon Cooks, Julian Edelman. I have Rob Gronkowski. I mean,
and the Dwayne Allen.
Yeah, and I think there's even another, and they have that other guy, Mitchell.
Yeah,
he was a rookie last year, and he was actually pretty decent for them. Not to mention all these running backs that can catch passes out of the backfield. So right now, the only thing they could do is go into this game Saturday. Let's see what these kids can do to start. And the thing is, it's not a blessing in disguise, man. It's pretty horrible either way you look at it. But the fact is that now these young guys are just going to get more reps.
Right.
And that's the most important thing. So here's what my latest thing is, because I was listening to sports radio all day, right? Hackenberg should start week one.
It doesn't matter. He could throw 100 interceptions in the preseason.
Hackenberg should just start week one at this point. Okay, there is no reason to start Josh McCown. There is no reason to have even a quarterback competition at this point.
No.
Because I would either start Bryce Petty or Christian Hackenberg. And if you don't want to start Christian Hackenberg week one, then start Bryce Petty.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason. You're going into a season with the rawest group of wide receivers you've ever had in the existence of the Jets.
And maybe the best defense they've had in 7 years.
Yeah. Because
it's going to be a really weird year, man.
So
you're going to lose a lot of games 10-0.
Yeah, maybe.
You know
I
what
don't
I mean?
Like, because honestly, looking at the defense on paper, I think it's pretty strong.
It is.
And the thing is, one guy who's been having a great camp is Justin Burris, this last year's fourth-round pick. He might actually take the job from Screen, which he probably should, because Screen is a human pass interference penalty.
Well, Screen was always better in the slot anyway.
Yeah, but he's not good covering on the outside. And Claiborne's actually looked really good, too. So this defense is going to be strong. I think it's going to keep them in a lot of games. But here's the deal. What bothers me about teams a lot of times is, and this is GMs and coaches, is they always tell you they're going to have a quarterback competition.
Right.
And then it never even gets to that point. Because then when you watch, you're reading about the practices, you're reading McCown is getting all the first-team reps and Hackenberg is getting nothing. And Petty's getting nothing. So there really is no quarterback competition. It's basically just your way of saying, yeah, we're going to give him a chance, but he's most likely going to start. He's going to start the season on the bench.
But you know whose fault that is? It's Woody Johnson's fault. If he would have come out last year and said, no matter what the hell happens this season, we could go 0-16. Bowles and McCagnon are safe. They are not getting fired. I don't care about this season, blah, blah, blah. But he didn't do that. So you know what? Bowles is trying to win games, man.
Yeah.
This is the owner not understanding where his team is at and not either fire Bowles at the end of last season or guarantee him for this season, because he's going to try and win games, which is only going to hurt you in the future. And I know that sounds ridiculous to say, but it is, because he wants McCown to start. He does. Now, I don't think McCagnon does, Because I think Maccagnan thinks he's more safe than Bowles is.
I think Maccagnan is sitting there saying, well, I drafted Christian Hackenberg. I need to see what he can do. But he's not. He lets Todd Bowles make the final decisions
but that's
on the roster.
thing, and Bowles needs to win in his mind to keep his job.
Here's
right?
what I'll say about Todd Bowles.
And that sucks.
You've said it. I've said it. I would prefer Hackenberg start week 1. Just get it out of the way at this point. Okay? Listen, the worst case scenario is you go 0-16, you get the number 1 pick in the draft, and you wind up with one of the quarterbacks anyway. Because trust me, you're going to wind up with one of those quarterbacks because there's a lot of teams right now that need a quarterback but are not going to be bad enough to get it. And then the one team that is going to be bad, the 49ers, are probably going to go after Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback. I really don't.
The one thing I'll say about the Jets, and then we'll move on to the next one, is the person I feel bad for Nunwitz is it's his rookie contract year is up, so that's going to screw with him.
You know what I think,
but on a good note,
I think they're going to bring him back.
No, they should, but it'll be on a crappy contract. He had the chance to make himself some money. Now, it won't be crappy to people like us, but for what he's doing, it might be crappy. Now, the good part for this is if you're on the bubble of an NFL roster right now, you better play your can off because there are plenty of wide receiver positions open on the New York Jets. Yeah. And let me tell you something. I wouldn't be surprised if these guys get gone and they just keep rotating dudes in every week.
You know, Robbie Anderson has potential. I mean, obviously he's not a number 1 because he's only a second-year player, and neither is Peak. I mean, we don't have a number 1 or a number 2 right now, it's safe to say.
Right.
Okay? But this is a time now for these two guys to try to just step up their game a little bit. I'm not expecting Pro Bowl seasons from either one of them.
But I know on the Giants have really good wide receivers that are not even going to make the team.
But our Darius Stewart, Chad Hansen, those are 4 guys those are 2 other guys right there. You know, this is just going to be growing pains this year. To be very honest, I wouldn't be surprised if this team is more heavy on the tight end than the running back. If I was a guy, and the thing is, if you're going to put Christian Hackenberg in the starting job whenever you decide to put him in, you got to let him loose. No dink and dunks. None of this, I'm going to check down to the running back every time. No, I want to see him air it out. I got to see what he can do with the ball. Yeah. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
Listen, it's a death blow to the – I mean, this season was shot anyway to begin with, so it doesn't even matter. It's not like we were a Super Bowl team and we wound up losing a guy like Marshall for the season for a herniated disc or whatever it was. But the fact is that it's a cruel joke, unfortunately. But if there's a silver lining to this thing is now the younger guys are going to get more reps, which means they can only get better from here.
Or worse.
Sure. Number 3, Carmelo Anthony came out of hiding to speak to the New York Post about the past 12 months, but it's uncertain if he really said anything. Melo has been the subject of trade rumors for what seems like an eternity, and with speculation that Kyrie Irving wants to be traded to the Knicks, Melo will only waive his no-trade clause to go to the Rockets. When he was asked about whether he would be at Knicks training camp or if he was going to play somewhere else, he simply said he didn't know, and he called the last 12 months, quote, an emotional roller coaster. Maddie, what I want to know is, does Carmelo Anthony's non-response speak volumes?
Have you ever heard the phrase, I've stepped in deeper puddles?
No.
It's referring to people, right? When you talk to somebody and they don't give you a whole lot back or they don't seem like there's a whole lot going on there, when you describe that person, you say, I've stepped in deeper puddles.
Right.
That's how I feel about Carmelo Anthony. I'm not sure, and I hear Carmelo's a great guy, and I'm sure he's a fun guy, and I'm sure he's funny, and I'm sure he's him and CP3 are like good old-fashioned bros, the whole thing. But I'm not sure Carmelo Anthony is capable of the thought put forth to put forth an argument that would or a statement that would make him seem like he really wanted to stay, go, or whatever he wanted to do. I don't think he has the capability to do that. I really don't. And so I'm not surprised by his silence. I think his silence is pretty standard at this point.
I'm not surprised that he's silent either because maybe he can't comment on these things, or maybe he just maybe he just doesn't want to be with the Knicks anymore, but he can't just say bluntly, I want out, get rid of me, because now we talked about this last week. We talked about how Melo is going to, too much has happened this offseason. Right. Into the last regular season with Phil Jackson, where it's just tarnished his reputation as a New York player, as a New York Knick. Okay? And now he wants out because, for whatever reason. Listen, Jackson's gone, so I would think, if anything, he might want to stay more than ever. But he's on borrowed time at this point in his career. He wants to win a championship. He feels his best best spot is with the Houston Rockets, with Mike D'Antoni and Chris Paul and James Harden and everything, and that's fine. I mean, but I'm not surprised he didn't say anything, mainly because there's nothing really to say. Yeah. You know, he was at something else. It had nothing to do with the Knicks in general. Yeah, I think he was at a opening of a playground. I don't know what it was exactly he was doing. But again, it's just like he's not going to comment on it because there's really nothing to comment on. But he's pretty much saying to everybody, well, you know what's going on. It's like I don't have to tell you in many ways. So it's like it sucks.
What I'll say is this about Melo and the fans of New York. He played in Denver most of his life, and when he played at Syracuse, where everybody on the East saw him play, he played in a zone defense. And I think you hear things about people, about NBA guys, where they're like, oh, he doesn't play any defense. But that's usually just a knock you throw at a guy, right? I mean, let's be fair. If you think about the NBA right now, I can think of like maybe 10 guys off the top of my head that are 5 guys off the top of my head that are superstars that also play really good defense.
Yeah.
But I think actually they didn't realize how bad he actually was. Now, I happen to watch a lot of basketball back then when he was on the Nuggets because I just did. And I happened to see a lot of late basketball. I happened to watch him. And I knew from the jump that he wasn't a good defensive player, but I don't think fans fully understood what that meant. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
I thought they thought that his scoring would outweigh his defense and blah, blah, blah. And the other thing, too, is he was a horse when he was in Denver. He never missed games. He was never hurt. He's been hurt a lot here. It never worked from the beginning, and I blame Dolan like I blame the owners for most things, but I blame Dolan because if Melo signs as a free agent and they still have Gallinari and everybody that they shipped off to freaking Timbuktu when they traded for him, they might have been a much better team the following year than they were. But he shredded that team of anybody who had talent to get Melo. And that's not what the GM wanted to do. Now he needs to go, though. But now it's time to go. Like, he can't come to training camp. We talked about it with Cavaliers. Now, it's not the same thing. It's not team. It's not players that hate each other. But if you're playing for the Knicks, right, and you're trying to win a spot and you're trying to win, and this dude walks in and he's asked to be traded, like, how are you going to feel about that? Him taking time from you, getting minutes or whatever. Like, I can't imagine that wouldn't create some animosity at some point.
No, I definitely do. And I think it's sending a message to the team that he doesn't really want to be there. And the thing is, if you don't trade him and he shows up to training camp and everything and to, fall practices before the season and everything, it might be a distraction. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be. I mean, the Knicks will tell you that it's never going to be. No team is going to admit that there's a distraction on their roster. But at the same time, you got to do something. And the thing is, the Rockets are sitting there like, well, we want Melo, but we're not going to take him unless you take back Ryan Anderson's ridiculously large contract. Because whether the Knicks want to believe it or not, I believe that Houston has all the cards here because Melo doesn't want to play for the Knicks. He wants to go to Houston. Houston's sitting there like, well, let's work on a deal, but let's, but I need you to take this contract back. And the Knicks have to ask themselves how bad they want to get rid of Melo.
And it should be very bad. Should be very bad. Number 4, while there is a possibility Asdrubal Cabrera and Jay Bruce can still be traded during the August waiver deadline, Newsday is reporting that the Mets are considering keeping both Cabrera and Bruce for next season. Cabrera has a team option for 2018, while Bruce is an unrestricted free agent after this season. But the Mets could make him a qualifying offer, which could land them a draft pick if he signs with another team. The New York Post is reporting Sandy Alderson, currently in the final year of his contract, will most likely return for the 2018 season.
Hooray.
Craig, what I want to know is, should the Mets bring back all, some, or none of the above for the 2018 season?
None of the above. I wouldn't bring back Alderson at all.
Would you offer Bruce the qualifying offer on the chance that he might take it, or just take the chance so you might get the draft pick?
I'll take the chance on Bruce on the qualifying offer.
What would that be, like $17 million, you
Something
think?
like that. I
Probably
want to say
15?
$17, $18 million.
Okay.
I think Bruce has earned it. I think Bruce has done a really good job for the Mets despite a crappy season. And remember, this was a guy that they were trying to get rid of before the spring training.
He's been your best outfielder all year.
Yeah,
it's not even
been
close.
Terrific. And on top of that, now he's playing first base, but Dominic Smith is coming up within the next, I think, few days from what
But that flexibility for him to be able to do that allows you to do double switches, allows you to do all sorts of different things.
The thing is, if you put Bruce in right field for next year, for example,
right,
and you put Conforto in center and you keep Cespedes in left, Dominic Smith plays first base next year, you can, on days that Dominic Smith gets a day off, you can move Bruce to first base because he could play first base.
Right.
So in some ways, he is a little bit on the versatility. He has some versatility to him. Cabrera, I love Cabrera. I actually really did like when they signed Cabrera, But I think the Mets need a third baseman long term. You have too many guys that can play multiple positions. You have Flores, you have TJ Rivera. In a way, you have Jose Reyes. He's not going to be back next year anyway. So adding Cabrera to me is just another guy that you're going to be rotating around. And there's even a possibility you could bring Neil Walker back. I don't know if that's a great idea, but it's always possible with the Mets. As for Sandy Alderson, I've said this a million times and I'll say it again. He has not done enough for this team to win. And I know that's kind of like what do I mean by that? Some of his trades have worked out, some of them haven't. Now we're starting to see that the Zach Wheeler trade is kind of a bust. Because not only does he has Tommy John surgery, the fact is he's still having the same issues with accuracy, and he can't go long in games. Now, whether that's because he's pitched too many innings, I don't know. I have no idea. And the thing is, you could roll the dice next year, put him in the rotation as your number 4 or whatever. But if it flames out again, then you're screwed.
Well, you might not be screwed, but they might just have. I mean, look, Dylan Betances was a starter for the Yankees.
But that's all the more reason why I would rather see Wheeler in the bullpen at this point.
Right, because he can do one inning and he's great.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think the Mets do have to invest in some pitching next year. I think they have to invest in a back rotation guy. Actually, my friend
CC Sabathia
had a great guy that I would love to see on the Mets, Lance Lynn from the Cardinals.
Yeah.
He's an innings eater. I mean, he's not a Cy Young candidate, but as a back-end third or fourth starter, he's pretty decent.
Also, CC might be available. The Yankees might not bring him back.
I would take CC
left-handed, NL, facing the pitcher. Yeah. The guy's pitching to a 3 ERA in the AL East right now. I mean,
And that's what I'm saying,
And he's a good guy. You have that.
Sandy went with status quo this year, and it failed. We already know it failed, and it was a huge disappointment. Now you got to figure out ways to build this team. You cannot go into the year next year with the same rotation. You have DeGrom and Syndergaard. Those are your 2 locks. Me personally, I know you're not going to get a lot from him at this stage. I would try to find somebody to take Harvey. I don't know.
Sure.
He's going to be in the last year of his contract, and the last thing the Mets need is him pitching and winning 20 games in 2018.
If I'm a team, I absolutely take a flyer on Matt Harvey because I would make him my closer.
Makes sense. It makes sense.
Right? You take a guy who's got great stuff, has arm problems, doesn't have the length
now it
to
becomes
last
a
the whole
case
season.
Of, does he want to be a closer?
Here's the
you see what I'm getting at?
I do, but I think if it was a 7th or 8th inning guy, I would say you'd probably get pushback from that. But the closer is like a thing now, right? It's like a huge thing. You have music. It's a whole thing. So I think his ego would allow that, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Maybe. I think he needs to go to not a small market team, but
like Oakland.
Big markets just kill him, I think, in a way. And the thing is, New York, I mean, he got swallowed up by New York in a way because of,
got hurt.
All the numerous. And the thing is, he is injury prone. It's 3 years in a row now. He's spent significant time on the DL.
Yeah, and it's weird crap. It's like
thoracic outlet syndrome.
It's like body stuff that means maybe your body's not meant to do this. Yeah. You know what I mean? You have guys like Noah Syndergaard. We have a reason why he got hurt. He put on too much muscle, and he didn't prepare for baseball activities. Instead, he prepared for weightlifting activities. So we get that, right? But this is like internal crap that it just doesn't seem right.
Here's the thing about the Mets for next year. You pretty much have, I would say, 75% of your lineup set, if you think about it.
Are you putting Dominic Smith and Rosario in there?
I'll put Dominic Smith and Rosario in there, absolutely, and I'll put TJ Rivera in there.
Well,
too.
definitely Rosario. He's on the team.
I think it's going to be first will be Dominic Smith. I think Rivera will play second, and I think that Rosario will play short. I don't know who's going to play third yet.
That's going to be a big scenario if you're a Met fan.
Okay, your outfield you pretty much said. Now, if you give Bruce the qualifying offer and he takes it, great. If not the end of the world either, because all you got to do is move Conforto to right field. And then you go out and you sign a good center fielder, a guy who's predicated on defense. I don't want Juan Lagares anymore. He keeps getting hurt. I can't deal with it.
Again, weird internal body stuff.
And then on top of that, you need a catcher. You need a new catcher. Travis d'Arnaud is a failure. He's a bust. I don't want anything to do with Travis d'Arnaud anymore. I'm sick and tired of waiting for it.
Who's going to be a free agent?
Who?
Our boy Matt Wieters.
He's been bad this year.
He's not been bad defensively, and he's hitting just as well as Wieters as d'Arnaud is.
I'll go after Lucroy.
See, but Lucroy's not been good either.
I like Lucroy better than Wieters. I'll take Lucroy over Wieters.
I'm just saying.
Which is a little surprising that Lucroy hasn't been that great, but
I will well, that whole team's been terrible. I will say this about the Mets. I wouldn't bring any of them back. They're going to bring Sandy back. I think they're going to try to bring Bruce back. I wouldn't bring back Walker or Cabrera.
Honestly,
because
I'd let them all walk.
Right, I would too. I'm saying that because I think that all it does is expands you to then have your kids come up, and then you're having your whole team is under the age of 30.
Yeah.
So I think that's good.
But I mean, at the end of the day, it just a lot of people think that Sandy Alderson has been this great GM, and I really disagree. I mean, a lot of his deals have been crappy, and I think some of the way he's treated former players has been a little crappy too.
Well.
Because the way he treated Murph, the way he even treated Reyes when Reyes first became a free agent, it was crappy. Any way you look at it. When he doesn't want you, he doesn't want you. But now he's getting burned by this. He's getting burned big time.
Yeah.
Okay? So that really I question his evaluation of talent at this point. The Mets are going to have a lot of work to do in the offseason. They're going to have to figure it out. But one thing they're going to have to do is they're going to definitely have to rebuild the back end of the rotation because too many issues this year with Gazelman, Lugo, Harvey, and even Wheeler to an extent.
Real quick on the Giants, and then we're going to do our AFC West preview, which is very exciting. Do 5 minutes per team.
First preseason games tomorrow, man.
Rapid fire, and then we're going to do closing time. Just want to spend a couple minutes on the Giants who did a little Jets. There's not a lot going on. I will say that there was a moment last week where I texted Craig. I think it was Wednesday morning. We did the show Tuesday. And the one thing I said on the show last week was, good thing about Giant Camp is we haven't seen anybody taken off on a cart. Nobody's hurt. And the next morning, Sterling Shepard gets taken off a cart. It turned out just to be a rolled ankle. And people were getting on the guy because
so drama.
Right. But have you ever seriously rolled your ankle? It hurts. And sometimes it can feel like it's broken.
I remember one time I went snowboarding, and I was learning. I wasn't really, I was very new to it. And I turned awkwardly on the board because I was learning to feel for the board, and I thought I felt my ankle pop.
Right. And you were, and
it hurt. And
right.
It definitely hurt, but it turned out to be just like a bruise, but it really freaking hurt.
Well, he's all upset because he thinks he's done for the season. There's a kid who's in his second year thinks he's done for the season. So look, real quick, because there's not a lot going on. I like to go, what I like to do is I never listen to a coach and I never listen to the GM in any interview because it's all nonsense. It's all team, blah, blah,
Especially
blah.
Todd Bowles, Jesus.
Oh, no, but McAdoo's not much better. It's like platitude.
The thing I have a problem
platitude.
with, you know what I always said about Todd Bowles is when he does press conferences, but despite the fact it's like watching paint dry, he doesn't really praise people. He just kind of he was okay.
I got to see it on
He
film.
was depressing. It's almost depressing.
Yeah,
it's almost
McAdoo will praise dudes. But the thing that I've liked at least recently is
the fighting.
Well, no, I mean listen, I don't mind that sort of thing. I think I think one is enough. I don't think you need 10. But
there were definitely some brawls this last week.
But what I'll say is this. Because I follow, Ron on all the guys who do all the thing. And the progression of Eric Flowers in their eyes has been good to me. Started out tough. Couple first days of camp. All you hear is brutal. Yesterday, the day before, seemed much better. Good hip placement, good knee bend, all the things. Because apparently his problem is not that he's not strong and not that he's not athletic. It's that he bends at the waist. And when you bend at the waist, you lose your power because your power's in your legs. So it's a technique with him. And so once he figures that out, he'll be much better. You like that, and you like that there's still no injuries, no real injuries.
Well, now we get to the real deal with the games on Friday. They play the Steelers on Friday.
Eli Manning for one throw.
I don't even think I'd play him.
You have to. He has to play a series. I'm sorry, he does. There's too many new guys on the offense where you got to play a new series. You got Brandon Marshall, you got Ingram, you got Ellison.
Yeah, but for one series, I mean, it could just be
but
handoff screen.
But game pace. I'll tell you what I will say. I don't care. I don't want to see Geno Smith or Josh Johnson for an extended period of time.
Oh, you're going to see them, man.
Oh, it's going to be brutal. I want to see the kid.
You're going to see Geno throw a 50-yard bomb right to the Steeler cornerback.
Yo, I'll say this, and then we're going to get to the AFC West because this is real quick. I don't think Geno Smith lacks the athletic ability to play quarterback.
I think it's mental.
I just don't think he's smart enough to do. And I don't mean smart in that way. That's
the problem
not fair.
with Geno was that when he was with the Jets, it was the same problems I used to have with Sanchez. He was always making the same mistakes every week.
He never learned from his own mistakes.
He didn't do a good job reading, with his reads. He was always throwing into coverage. He was always taking ridiculous sacks. And the worst part about it for me was he wasn't protecting the football.
Right.
These guys were just, all they have to do is they'd blow on it and it would fall out of his hands.
Well, but I'm saying that if he has to come into a game for a half, I think he could lead the Giants to victory. if he has to start 5 games in a row, we're screwed.
Well, the thing is, like,
Right?
look, now one thing about Geno, if it ever came to that, and God forbid if you ever, you're a Giant fan, you pray to God and that never happens, is that he does have a familiar face with Brandon Marshall. So that's definitely, that could help him to an extent.
We'll see.
Outside of that, I mean, I think,
Look,
listen,
let's be fair. If Eli's not starting the game, we're screwed.
yeah. I mean, right now, if you're a Giant fan, you're thrilled at the fact that there haven't been any injuries. The Sterling Shepard injury was a little scary, but I think at the end of the day, even if they had lost
fine.
Sterling Shepard for an
Yeah.
extended period of time, they were good because you still have Beckham and you still have Marshall.
You wanted to go on the AFC West?
Yeah, but you're in NFC.
Oh, I am? Oh, that's right, I am. Totally forgot about that. Where am
Time
I
to
here?
do our-
who are we
Well,
starting
while
with?
you're doing that,
Yeah.
I will tell people that the Polar Opposites podcast is
That's what I'm
available
looking
on
for.
polaropposites.podbean.com
Yes.
as well as iTunes. And we are on Spreaker.com as well. And check us out, as always, on Twitter at PolarOpposites1. Maddie, it's time to do our 2017 NFL preview.
I'm looking under S for San Diego. They're
Yeah, you
freaking
forgot they
stupid
moved to
LA.
Los Angeles.
Like, come on, it's time for the Dodgers to
And the
start
funny
their
thing is, your
season.
first team was the Los Angeles Rams. You were just with the wrong emblem.
Oh, brutal. We're going to start with the Rams. We always go
Chargers.
Sorry. Crap. It's the same team to me
Dude,
now.
like, come
it's
on.
literally the same team to me now.
We don't
So-
do any prep before this show. You need to be on point.
I'm on point. It's too confusing now.
I don't want to hear it.
It's too confusing.
There's
I
nothing
can't-
going on.
I can't keep track of it. So we're going to start off with the Chargers
Who moved to Los Angeles.
from San Diego.
the artist
Oy.
formerly known as the San Diego
And they're
Chargers.
playing in a stadium that houses 30,000
the
people,
StubHub Center,
which apparently Philip Rivers says feels like home already.
the LA Galaxy.
Here's the thing about the Chargers, and then we'll break it down a little more. We're going to do 5 minutes a team. Here's the thing. They're in a very hard division, and all the other teams are better than them. All the other teams.
Honestly, you'd be surprised at how a few articles I've read that are predicting the Chargers to be a playoff team.
That's
a wild
that's
card team.
insane to me, right? The only team.
First of all, there's not going to be 3 teams. There's not going to be more than 2 teams from the West
No.
going into the playoffs this year.
and the other thing I'll say is if the only team I think could be worse than them is Denver, but that's going to depend on how their defense plays.
Honestly,
Denver does not scare me at all.
I think Kansas City's going to be worse.
Oh, really? I love.
I'm
Kansas
not sold
City.
on Kansas City. this
Anyway,
year.
on to the offense. Where listen, they have a very good offense, right? San Diego has a good offense. They got good wide receivers. Assuming injury, it seems like every year one of the
always Keenan
LA
Allen.
Chargers going.
It's always just. How about this? Why don't you just say the
Chargers.
Chargers?
Yeah, I know. San Diego Superchargers. They had changed that song. So, but yeah, it's always right. It's always one guy tears a knee or does something and he's out for the season. They have a good running back. You like Gordon. He had a better second year than they did first year.
Last year it was Keenan Allen, and he was
Right.
on my fantasy team.
Yeah,
and he was
screwed you.
week 1, and he was killing the Chiefs. He was killing
And
the
then he
Chiefs in
just-
the first half. He had like almost 100 yards receiving in the second quarter, and then he tore his ACL, and his season was over, and my season was over just like that.
Yeah. Now the thing about them too is they have a good offensive line, but the past couple of years have been decimated by injuries. You have guys like Russell Okung who makes a lot of money but doesn't necessarily make 16 starts a year, and they have a decent offensive line. The problem for the Chargers, I'm going to do it 100 times. The problem for the Chargers, though, again, isn't necessarily their offense, right? They've had a good offense for the past 5 years. They score points at
Well,
will most of the time.
as long as you have Rivers quarterback in the team, you're going to put up points. The problem is that these guys are getting hurt left and right. Their first
Brutal.
round pick is going to miss time. He's got back problems. He's going to miss pretty much the entire preseason.
Yeah.
He might even miss into the regular season as well because he may need surgery.
Which is just going to stunt his growth even
Yeah.
more because a rookie
You know,
in the preseason is
Keenan
huge.
Keenan Allen is coming back from a torn ACL. We don't really know how effective he's going to be coming back from an injury. The second year in a row he's had a big injury. Gates is another year older at tight end, but Hunter Henry filled in nicely for him, in spots. So you'll probably
And Gates
see
will still get 10 touchdowns waking up.
I mean, he won't. Gates is the kind of guy now in this stage in his career where he's not going to catch a lot of passes, but he'll find the end.
Sure, absolutely.
Gordon Pitt played well last year. He didn't play great the first year, but he played pretty well last year. The defense, Joey Bosa, when they drafted Joey Bosa last year,
was a shock.
they got killed. They
he was
got
good for
killed
them.
for that pick. And I thought it was a solid pick because he's a solid pass rusher.
Yeah.
He seemed like to be like a very almost borderline underrated because he wasn't being talked about. And really in the top 5, he was kind of all over the place. And then he wound up having a pretty good year, and that was during a contract holdout.
That might, and I'm going to get killed for saying this, but sometimes being white might hurt you. Do you know what I'm saying? You see these defensive ends that are fast, super fast, and Bosa, maybe he's a little bit slower, but maybe his motor runs a little more. Like Jared Allen was the same way. He
Well-
wasn't the fastest guy in the world.
What do I always say about the New England Patriots?
It's all white guys.
They lead the league in white offensive players.
They love it. But look, here's the thing: their defensive line is good, not great. Their linebackers are good, not great. Their secondary is good, not great.
I can't believe they still have Dwight Lowry playing safety.
And when you're in a division with the Raiders and the Broncos, I can't really put in that anymore. But the Raiders and say the Chiefs with a lot of offensive weapons, whether you like the Chiefs or not, they do have a lot of offensive weapons.
Do they really,
secondary,
though?
They do.
Do they really?
They do. Now they might all be 5'10" and really fast, but they have a lot of offensive weapons.
I don't know.
Well, we're going to get to that right now. Did they finish third? No, they finished. The Broncos finished second or third, right?
I'm sure I don't
That's
know.
what it was. So on to Denver. Shoot over to Denver. Look, here's the problem for Denver, right? You have John Elway as your GM, your president and GM, runs the whole world, and he can't solve the quarterback problem.
Simeon is effective. He's not really a guy that he can carry a team. It was almost like with Osweiler.
Right.
Okay, when they had Peyton, Osweiler came in and played well. He played okay.
A couple games.
But it was too small of a sample to really determine if Osweiler was going to be a good NFL quarterback. And as you saw in Houston, he was a disaster, especially after signing that big contract.
Yeah.
Simeon, I kind of think, is going to be the same thing. I don't think he's a guy that does a lot of things great, but he doesn't do a lot of things bad either. My opinion is he's keeping the seat warm for Paxton Lynch.
Yeah, but when's Paxton Lynch going to play? I mean, that's a second round
You already
pick.
knew. Here's the thing. No, he was a first round.
First round pick.
Here's the thing about Paxton Lynch. A lot of the stuff I read about Paxton Lynch was that he was raw. He came from a program. He went to Memphis. He came from a program. He was really good, but he was raw. And there was no way he was going to take over that job in his first year. Whoever drafted Paxton Lynch was going to have to develop him a little bit.
I understand that,
So
but
he saw
shouldn't
some
that
time.
be now? I mean, when
Yeah,
Trevor,
but I
like,
mean-
if you have Peyton Manning in front of you, that's different. But it's
right
Trevor
now
Siemian.
they still have a competition. They also have a new coach in Vance Joseph.
Right.
Okay, so Vance Joseph is kind of you know what it is. I love when coaches kind of come in and they try to act like hard asses. But it's like it's really fake and it's really phony. Like Anthony Lynn with the whole thing with Rivers not going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I thought it was so phony. And Vance Joseph is no different.
Yeah.
Now he's saying that of course nobody's impressing him. And I'm like, it's freaking 2 weeks into training camp.
Yeah, and this is a new
Nobody's
offense for these
standing
guys.
out yet.
But it's also a new offense for everybody,
Yeah,
right?
Mike McCoy is the offensive coordinator in Denver now. So I mean, we'll know more after the first game. I mean, depending on how many reps they get in the first game. I mean, my gut tells me that Simeon will start opening day. We'll start week 1.
Here's my thing. This is the same offense they've had for like 3 seasons now, right?
Yeah.
Basically. And I don't see it getting better. I just don't see it getting better. The offensive line wasn't great last year. You don't have a great quarterback. You have 2 good wide receivers, and Thomas can be a great wide receiver.
Demarius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders are strong at wide receiver. The problem is, again, whoever's throwing them the football is not strong.
Now
C.J. Anderson, not a bad back, not a great back either, though. I mean, but what keeps Denver in a lot of games is their defense is great.
It is great, but
and on top of that, they lost Shane Ray for a few weeks with an injury. So that's a tough blow.
Yeah, and look, when you have a defense like they did a couple years ago, right? That all-time defense that took them to the Super Bowl, right? The problem is that those guys are going to get paid, and they can't get all paid by you. So filling in for those guys after they leave is hard. And you saw it last year. That defense, good, was not great. They weren't as great as they were a couple years ago. You have guys like Von Miller who are older, Talib who is much older now, and cornerbacks. It's like that. It's a snap of a finger, and they're all of a sudden they're too slow to play the position. We saw it with Revis. Yeah. It took Revis like a game. One game he was good, and the next game he was terrible.
And the problem with guys like Aqib Talib and Revis is that they come in with a lot of attitude, like they're the bee's knees.
Right.
That's basically the best.
Yeah, and they're not anymore.
And the thing is, what happened with Revis? Came in out of shape. And, I mean, he didn't care. He didn't care. Let's call it what it was. He didn't care. And that's why he got torched all year long, because he never kept himself in any type of physical shape. And it showed on the field. I gave him a mulligan that first game, and then after that, it was the same thing. Talib is still a quality cornerback. I'm not saying he's not.
Of course not.
But he's another year older, And I mean, outside of that, though, I think this will be the defense, regardless of how he is, the defense will keep them in games and they're going to win a lot of games like 17-14.
It will, unless injuries hit, because the depth on this team is not as good as it was a couple years ago, especially on defense, because they lost a lot of those guys.
Sure.
You're seeing the depth of that team right now. The thing for me about the Broncos is, to me, they're like one of the few teams I look at where I think they could win 9 or 10 games, or they could lose like
5 or 6. Yeah, they could
They
lose
could
like 10
win
or
like
11.
4 or 5.
Yeah.
Like they could literally be that large a swing, and I don't really feel that about a lot of teams going forward. On to Kansas City, the Chiefs, where apparently Craig and I feel very differently about this.
I don't know. It's just like I'm not really blown away by the Chiefs. I never have been, because I just think they're a boring team. I think they're an incredibly boring team.
But
on
they
offense.
do that better than everybody else, and they win a ton of games.
Now, I don't like their receivers. I know Tyreek Hill was just came out of nowhere last year and was just tearing it up, not only on special teams, but he was a very good deep threat. Now, one thing that keeps Kansas City interesting is the fact that Travis Kelce is one of the best tight ends in the NFL. Okay, he's definitely
and their quarterback doesn't turn the ball over.
Yeah, Alex Smith is he's a very conservative passer. He doesn't take risks, and that's a good thing. Now,
Game manager, I believe, is the term.
Okay, yeah. Now, this year they don't have Jamal Charles. He tore his ACL last year. He really wasn't very effective for them anyway last year. So they're going to go with Sharkandrick West and Spencer Ware, which is a pretty decent running back group. The thing about the Chiefs that I worry about is, again, when you're playing games against the Broncos twice, the Raiders twice, and the Chargers twice, I don't know. I'm just overall, I think they'll have a good defense. I mean, with Justin Houston, Eric Berry, and those guys. But I'm just not. They just don't. There's nothing interesting about the Kansas City Chiefs. I just think they're going to be. And as long as Alex Smith is the quarterback of this team, they're not going to a Super Bowl.
Well, that might be true. That, I'm not saying they're going to the Super Bowl, but this was one of the best teams in the NFL last year for most of the season. They started out a little slow, and then they caught fire. The thing I like about the Kansas City Chiefs is they sort of run a new style offense while being a little bit more old style, so they run the ball a lot more than most teams. They'll smack you in the mouth. Their defense is tough. Their defense will hit you. Their defense will put you in the ground. And their offensive line is big and tough, too, which is why you get a lot of those big running plays that they have and everything like that. Travis Kelce, I mean, look, you're talking about a guy, and it's amazing, right? You look at guys like when Gronk's healthy and Kelce and all these tight ends that are just running free, man, just in the middle of the field. They're just running free. It happens a lot. Here's what I think. I'm not saying they're the best team in the West. I don't think that at all. I think they're the second best team, and the reason is because I think that they're sort of still on the way up a little bit while Denver is sort of coming down, and I think they're passing them a little bit as we speak. And I think the Chargers obviously last.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Chiefs will be fighting for first place, and I definitely think they'll be in the wild card hunt all year. I don't want to say they're overrated. I don't think that's really what it is. I just don't think I'm not overly impressed with them as a team. That's it.
And that's fine, but that's probably the way they like it.
And the thing is, I think that Alex Smith is basically keeping the seat warm for Pat Mahomes.
Well, but that's the thing for me, right? Because we could see, if something were to happen, we could see Pat Mahomes have to play, and then we might see, Andy Reid is not necessarily a guy who doesn't like to open it up. I mean, when he was with the Eagles, they used to play a pretty high-powered offense that did have a run game, but I think that he's constructed the way they play offense based around the quarterback, which I think a lot of teams don't do, right? I think a lot of offensive coordinators do. I think a lot of offensive coordinators try to fit a round peg in a square hole, where I think that Andy Reid has said, Alex Smith, not a great quarterback, but a good quarterback, especially if I put him in good positions, he's going to make good choices. And I think that's why they win games. They also had a ton of comeback wins last year. They were down a bunch in many games and came back and won. Look, they're not going to the Super Bowl, but I think that they're better than most people are giving them.
But I mean, do you want to be that team that is always the bridesmaid, never the bride, or do you want to?
But that's quarterback. I mean, that's quarterback,
and that's what's really concerning about the Chiefs. I mean, they need to either. They need to move on from Alex Smith eventually.
Well,
right?
I think this is it, isn't it? Is this his last year?
I hope this is his last year because he's literally, he's been good. He hasn't been amazing.
And he's a guy who suffered from concussion, so you never know what's going to happen. Or here's the other thing. Let's be fair. If Mahomes goes out and has a freaking amazing camp and is throwing the ball all over the place and completing passes and doing things like we saw with Russell Wilson, you play the guy who's good. You don't necessarily play a guy because he's making money.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they had just paid what's his name all that money from the Packers.
Who?
The backup quarterback, Matt Flynn. Remember that they paid Flynn all that money, drafted Rivers, drafted Russell Wilson in the third round. He had a great camp and they started him.
Yeah.
So it can happen. It can happen. Now on to the team that's going to win the West.
See, again, though, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being, like,
Here's the thing.
stingy about this. I don't know. Like, this is another team. Like, I mean, the Raiders had a great year last year, went to the playoffs. Del Rio did a great job with them. I mean, even though I've never been a big Del Rio fan, I always thought he was very overrated. But, you know, they're basically bringing back the same team, right?
Yes.
Yeah, your boy Marshall Newhouse is probably starting for them this year rather than Austin Howard. Marshawn Lynch is back, beast mode. But again, a year off from Marshawn Lynch, I don't know. Is he really going to be that effective?
That, to me, is the biggest question because the backups on this team have a combined, I think, 150 attempts between the two of them. That, to me, is the thing. Look, wide receiver, they're fine. I think their tight end is good. They have a really good young quarterback. Their offensive line, with the exception of Marshall Newhouse, is very good. Getting Osemele from the, was it Ravens? I think it was the Ravens, was a good deal for them. But if Marshawn Lynch ain't Marshawn Lynch, if he's not beast mode, let's be fair, to ask him to be beast mode is asking a lot, right?
Especially
it just
a year off.
Right. So if he's not beast mode, you're going to put a lot. Now, let's be fair, they didn't have a really – they played a lot of the year without having a tremendous run game, and they can do that. The reason they could do that is because their defense is pretty good.
And the thing is, I mean, I like their defense. I don't love the defense. I'm not a big fan of their secondary. You know, Khalil Mack obviously is one of the top pass rushers in the league. You know, Bruce Irvin had a decent year last year for them. But other than that, I mean, I'm not crazy about the corners with Amerson, who had really kind of came off as like one good year, then got the new deal. And then what we all forget is that the Raiders are going to be playing a tougher schedule this year.
Yes,
they're going to be playing a first place schedule. That means you're going to be playing the Steelers. You're going to be playing the Pats. You know, not to mention twice against the Chiefs, Broncos, and Chargers. I mean, that's tough. That's tough 8 games right there.
It is, but I think that first of all, I think they're the most talented team in that division. When you look at skill position, I think they're the most talented as a whole. I think they have the best quarterback right now in the division. I'm not saying he's the best for a career, but I'm saying if I had to choose one guy and where they are at right now, I'm taking him over Rivers. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would take Derek Carr over Rivers at this point.
And, I mean, look.
The thing is, in my opinion, the Chargers should have moved on from Rivers a long time ago because he's just wasting away there.
Well, that's the stupidity of that whole thing.
You know,
and
he's
I agree
completely
with you on that.
wasting away there at this point. The Chargers aren't going to be a good team for at least a few years, you know, until either the Raiders take a step back, which is probably not happening because McKenzie's built that team for, I think, long success.
Absolutely. They got young offensive linemen. They have young, I mean, listen, Crabtree isn't young per se, but they have young wide receivers. They have a young quarterback. I mean, look, I'm not saying it's the best division in the NFL. I don't think that at all. I think it's got a lot. It used to be a couple years ago.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
And
anymore.
I think that a lot of teams have caught. I think what happened is I think that the Broncos and the Chargers sort of came back to the pack, and the Raiders and the Chiefs got better, and now it's just sort of a jumbled mess to where literally everybody could be 7-9 or 9-7. I wouldn't be surprised.
Think about a team like the Broncos. The Broncos have always been pretty much set at the quarterback position, whether it was Elway for his entire career, when it was Cutler for a few years, and then it eventually became Manning. Okay, this is really the first couple of years where there's just a major question mark at that position because you already know what you have with Trevor Siemian, and you know Trevor Siemian is just going to be, like I said, one of those guys. He's going to throw like 20 touchdowns and like 14 interception type thing. Yeah. He's not going to be good. He's going to hurt you a lot of times too. And while Paxton Lynch is a gunslinger in a way, he's raw. And we don't even know what he's going to be at this point, which is why, you know, I always say it's so tough to draft a quarterback in the first round because, man, if you fail, it sets you back like a few years.
Sure, absolutely.
And then you're right back to where you started.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I definitely see the Broncos and the Chargers. I mean, maybe Chargers less than the Broncos taking a step back this year.
Yeah, for me, though, the reason I don't is because the Chargers for the last 5 years have always had a ton of injuries that have always hurt them so much, whether it be the offensive line, the wide receivers,
played with
the
a
running
full
backs.
roster.
Right.
They've rarely played with a full
roster. And at some point, like, the Giants did something about that. They got rid of Coughlin. You know what I mean? Like, was it him? I don't know. But since McAdoo's been here, the injuries have been way less. Yeah. So I don't know what it is, but I always count on the Chargers to have a ton of injuries. And I know that's silly to say in football, but more than everybody else.
And the thing is, if the Chargers were a 100% healthy team, and that's difficult in this day and age in the NFL, the fact is they would be a much better team than what they are.
Absolutely.
Well, when you lose a guy like Keenan Allen at week 1 and you have to go 15 weeks, and now listen, Travis Benjamin filled in nicely, Tyrell Williams filled in nicely, but you need that Keenan Allen. You need a guy like Keenan Allen. And on top of that, your first-round pick this year, Mike Williams, has back problems, and he might miss time. He may even miss the season.
Yeah.
So it sucks, but that's what you have. That's unfortunately the nature of the beast, and that's the way it is. And the thing is, in the West, you have the Raiders are, like you said, Raiders taking a step forward. The Chiefs taking a step forward. So again, the Chargers are going to be one of those teams that are constantly stuck in neutral until they either I don't even know. I'm saying at this point you have to move on from guys like Rivers.
Yeah.
You have a young team with, Gordon and Allen and Williams and all that stuff. So now you need kind of a younger quarterback because you're just wasting Williams Rivers until he retires. And if you keep every year with the Chargers, they're always going to be that 8-8, 9-7, 7-9 team. We always talk about it. What's the one thing we always say?
No, don't be mediocre.
It sucks to be mediocre, man, because it's just when you see that every year, it doesn't make it fun, plain and simple. Quickly. Your rank in order of finish for the AFC West.
Chargers, Broncos, Chiefs, Raiders.
So I'm assuming you mean 4-1.
Yes.
I'm actually going to flip the Broncos and Chargers.
Okay.
But not by much.
All right.
I think they'll still be 6-10 or 7-9, but I think that's what it'll be.
You ready to do it?
Let's do it. Closing time, as always, rounds out the Polar Opposites podcast for the week. Do we have 6 or 8 topics?
8.
We have 8 topics. Maddie finally got on the computer with the
Yes.
research. Way to go, Maddie.
That's what I do.
All right, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
8 topics.
8 topics.
Anything goes. All
Indeed.
opinions legal. All opinions matter. All opinions are necessary, and all opinions whatever. Maddie, are you ready?
Ho!
There we go.
Had to wait. Had to. It was too close.
Number 1, the Dolphins have signed Jay Cutler to a 1-year, $10 million contract, presumably to be the starter after the injury suffered by quarterback Ryan Tannehill last week during practice. Tannehill suffered a partially torn ACL during Week 14 last season, but elected not to get surgery, and the injury he suffered during practice on Thursday is to that same knee. The Dolphins are being very secretive about the severity of the injury, with some reports saying he'll need season-ending surgery, while other reports say he has a hyperextended knee, and the timetable for his return is unknown. Is the signing of Jay Cutler a panic move by the Dolphins?
I don't think it's a panic move. I mean, I think they needed somebody. If they think the guy's going to be out for a while, they needed to bring somebody in. And if you weren't going to bring Colin Kaepernick in, who's the best guy that's still available, why not bring in the second best guy who's available in Jay Cutler? And that's what they did. It was the cashier thing. Whatever you want to say it was, it doesn't matter. They brought in Cutler. I mean, it's a panic move, but they had no choice but to make it. They had to do it.
I don't agree.
You think Matt Moore is going to do it?
I think Matt Moore is a pretty serviceable quarterback.
Right, but the problem is that Matt Moore, we saw what happened to Matt Moore. He got exposed. So if you have Matt Moore is a good backup. So if Jay Cutler misses a couple games, Matt Moore can win you those games.
Here's the thing, though. I need to know, is Tannehill out for the year? Is he out for 6 weeks? I mean, what do we know?
Listen, if they did this, if they gave him $10 million for a year, he's out for the year, right? Why would they do that? See, if he was out for 6 weeks and you didn't have Matt Moore do it, then that's just stupid.
My friend just texted me. He said Spike Lee is doing a Colin Kaepernick rally.
Yeah, they spelled his name wrong on the poster.
Headquarters.
Yeah, no, they spelled his name wrong on the poster.
It's one of those free Mr. Clark rallies from Lean On
look,
Me.
I think they did, but what else are you going to do? They had to do it. They had no choice.
I don't agree. I'm not
who's
saying
going to back up Matt Moore? Who
I
are you
don't
going to
know.
get to do that? Some schlub off the street?
I don't know.
I'd rather bring in a veteran guy who can start for me and still have Matt Moore be what he's good at, which is the backup.
But is Cutler really that good anymore?
He's better than Matt Moore.
But is Cutler really
He's
that good
better
anymore?
than
Is
Matt
he really
Moore.
going to make the Dolphins
He's
that much better than
Matt Moore?
I'm sorry, I disagree.
Oh.
I think Matt Moore, honestly, he's one of the better backups in the league. I think he can play. I think the Dolphins have enough weapons that they can easily get by with him. And at the same time, I mean, again, is Jay Cutler really going to make your team that much better? If he was that much better of a quarterback these days, he would have been signed a long time ago. And he wasn't. He wasn't.
He wasn't, but that's because nobody needed it. They need it now. The starting quarterback is
Even
out.
the bad teams didn't sign Jay Cutler.
Well, why would you if you're a bad team? The Dolphins don't think they're going to be a bad team. They think they're going to be a good team. They were a 10-win team last year. They think they're going to be a good team, so you want somebody to come in and start for you.
Okay. I mean, listen, I don't think it's a good move. I think it is a panic move by the Dolphins.
This is
It's tough
Jet
to.
fan coming out.
No, it isn't. It isn't. I don't think it is. I don't think it is. The fact is that I don't think it's a great signing for them.
Well, no, but there's
And the
nobody
thing
else.
is,
Who's
how
better?
can you possibly tell me right now that Matt Moore can at least do the job for you? We haven't even had one preseason game
For a
yet.
whole season, he can't. You know why we know that? Because nobody's ever given him the chance to do it. He's never been able to do it before, so why would he think now? We know Jay Cutler can do it for a whole season. If what's his name, Tannehill's out for 6 weeks, you have Matt Moore do it. That's why I think he's out for the season, because they brought in Cutler.
Then say that.
Well, but they don't want to say that.
Why not?
I don't, because NFL coaches are fucking stupid, and all they do is they're just so superstitious. They never say anything. Look at Bill Belichick, number 2. Richard Sherman was back defending Colin Kaepernick and ripping teams that need starting quarterbacks for not signing him. In his interview with USA Today, he mentioned the Jets, Jaguars, Rams, 3 teams with QBs that should not have jobs over Colin Kaepernick. For you to say you have to check with sponsors and fans because this guy took a knee and made a statement. Now, if you told me this guy threw 8 pick sixes last year and played like a bum, had no talent, that's one thing. You're telling me fans would rather you lose and put a worse player out there because a guy took a stand? That's where it's troublesome to me. Most recently, the Ravens and Dolphins have lost their QBs to injury, but elected to sign other players over Kaepernick. Is Sherman wrong about what he's saying?
Well, he's not really wrong about the Jets situation because the Jets really don't have a quarterback. And, I mean, listen, I didn't want Kaepernick. I didn't really want McCown either. I wanted Petty and Hackenberg to just fight it out at this point. As for the Rams, you can't really say that Kaepernick is worse than Jared Goff because Jared Goff is only in his second year right now in the team with a new coach.
That's not fair.
Okay, that's a bit extreme. As for Bortles, I'll take Bortles over Kaepernick, believe it or not, because I think he's a better pocket passer, even though he does turn the ball over quite a bit. Okay? He's not really wrong with what he's saying. Like, I think if the Ravens are really serious, we don't really know how long Flacco's going to be out for, and obviously the issue with Tannehill and Fidel Castro or whatever. But here's the thing, though, at the same time. You know, Seattle Seahawks had a chance to sign Kaepernick, too, and they didn't sign him. And I know they were going to sign him as a backup, and everybody was pulling for it. Even the Seahawks players were pushing for it, and they still didn't sign him. Okay? And Carroll's excuse was, well, he's a starter in this league. That's not a good enough excuse for me. That's not a good enough excuse. And the thing is, at the same time, how do we know that Kaepernick isn't turning down offers? Is he turning down offers from teams? Do we know that? Do we know that for a fact?
Do you really think he's turning down offers at this point? Really?
I don't know.
He hasn't got it. If he got an offer, it'd be all over the place.
I'm saying I don't know if he's gotten an offer.
Richard
And maybe he did get an offer. Maybe it's not necessarily to be a starter, but I'm sure he got an offer from a team.
I can't imagine he's gotten any offers at this point.
Listen, I think at the end of the day, Kaepernick wants to be a starting quarterback. I don't think he wants to be a backup. So until someone decides to give him a starting job, he's going to be unemployed. Plain and simple.
Well, you can't know that he's gotten offers. You can't.
I don't know, but I'm saying, what if maybe he did? We don't know.
I think we would have heard. We've heard everything else. I think we would have heard that.
Maybe, but we don't know.
Sherman is right, but he's not right about the Rams. That's ludicrous.
He's right about the Jets. I'll give him that.
He's right about the Jets, and he's right about the Jaguars. If you want to argue that, you can. That Bortles has been terrible and Kaepernick's been better. I don't really care. All I'll say is this. Kaepernick should have been signed by somebody, and he's not, and it's because of the knee and nothing else. That's it.
And to be very honest, do I need to keep hearing from the friggin' Seattle Seahawks on everything going on in the NFL?
You didn't have to put it
if
in
it's
there.
not, yeah. Well, there's not exactly shit to talk about. I mean,
I came up with some good stuff.
So, anyway, number 3. Any team interested in trading for Kyrie Irving should probably know in advance that he won't commit to your team long term, according to Terry Pluto of the Cleveland Plain Dealer. Irving has requested a trade out of Cleveland with the Knicks, Heat, Spurs, and Timberwolves as his preferred landing spots. It's unclear if those 4 teams would expect Irving to commit to them long term should they trade for him, but Pluto cites that Irving has 2 years left on his current deal and wants to keep his options open. Has Irving hurt his chances of getting his wish of being traded from the Cavs?
I think a little bit because I think he's hurt the Cavs more than anybody else. Because if I'm a team, I'm going, look, if I only got the guy for 2 years, I'm not giving you a ton of crap. I'm giving you some stuff, but I'm not giving you a ton. Maybe it's one less first-round pick. Maybe it's one less player or whatever. But I think he's hurt the Cavs more than himself because I think a team will take a flyer hoping that in the 2 years they can get him to want to stay there.
I think he's hurt his chances, believe it or not, because the thing is, if you're going to demand a trade out of Cleveland, you don't want to play with LeBron James anymore. You go to where you want to go to, but you can't now sit there and say, well, I'm going to keep my options open. I mean, then people may not want to trade for you because if they know they only have you for 2 years, unless they're a contending team like the Spurs or maybe even the T-Wolves, maybe they would like that. Maybe that wouldn't be such a bad thing.
Or if you're a team like the Knicks, you think New York, hometown, he'll want to stay here. We can pay him the most money.
But the thing is, at the same time, if he's asking to be traded and wants off the team, then you can't sit there now and say, well, I don't intend to stay with you for more than the 2 years. I'm going to see what my other options are. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous if you ask me. I mean, if you're going to have the stones to ask for a trade, you go where you go because that's what you wanted to do at the end of the day, right? And if they trade you to one of those 4 teams, you got your second wish too.
Yeah. Number 4, the Big Three. The Big Three League, partially owned and operated by rapper Ice Cube, has suspended Allen Iverson for 1 game for no showing a league game back on July 30th. Various reports say Iverson was at a Chicago area casino while his team, Three's Company, where he serves as both player and head coach, were in Dallas for a Big Three game. Iverson, was that the name of the team, Three's Company? Oh, that makes sense. I've literally never watched a second of this thing.
It's not as good as Teabagger, but
no, it's definitely not. Iverson was suspended because he failed to give advance notice for his unexplained absence. Iverson has already upset fans in Philadelphia for what was supposed to be his homecoming game when it was announced right before tip-off that he would not play due to injury. Iverson apologized in a statement to the fans as well as to the rest of his teams in the league. Are you surprised that Iverson isn't really taking this seriously?
No, of course not. I'm not surprised. I don't think any of the guys are really taking it that seriously.
Practice.
But I think they're enjoying it to an extent. I mean, listen, this league is exactly what it is. It's just to get you through the summer until the NBA starts up again in the fall with preseason and all that stuff. That being said, am I surprised that Iverson is pulling an Iverson? No, not really. So
they call it an Iverson for a reason.
Now here's the thing. As much as this league to me is nothing more than a gimmick league, I think it's kind of funny that Ice Cube is really putting his foot down on this and suspending
you gotta love it, right?
So in some ways, I got to give him credit, for really, because he's taking it seriously and all that stuff. But no, I'm not surprised in the least that they are.
Oh, what I'll say, the funniest part of this whole thing to me is that Iverson was suspended because he failed to give advance notice for his unexplained absence.
Yeah,
that is brilliant.
I got to fill out paperwork. I'm Allen Iverson. I have to fill out paperwork for a day off.
But it's not even that. Like, it's unexplained. So he could just send a thing saying, I don't, like, whatever. Like, how could he give advance notice of an unexplained absence? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But that's the way we work today.
Number 5, Matt's college roommate Manish Mehta of the New York Daily News is reporting through a Jet source that the team isn't thrilled with defensive end Muhammad Wilkerson. The source said that Wilkerson, quote, doesn't cut it loose all the time and that he, quote, takes a lot of plays off. Mehta also wrote that the organization believes he is underachieving and that he confuses playing hard with being active. Wilkerson is coming off a rough 2016 with only 4.5 sacks, but was also coming back from a broken leg suffered during Week 17 of the 2015 season. A poor 2017 season would allow the Jets to cut him without any major salary cap damage. Is an article like this necessary so early in the preseason?
No, of course not. It's nonsense. And the other thing, too, is I'll say this. The broken leg is a huge thing. When you're talking about a giant man, like Mo is.
He's like 310.
Right. When you're talking about that, it's going to take longer for that bone to heal. Also, pushing off and all that sort of stuff is very difficult. Look, Muhammad Wilkerson did not have a good year last year. But he had a good year the year before, and a good year the year before that. So why wouldn't you let him play it out? He had 1 year coming off an injury. We know one thing about football, right? The thing we know about football is this. When you have a major injury, right, a broken leg, an ACL, or whatever, it always takes a year. It takes the year that you have the surgery and all the stuff, and then it takes another full year before you feel like yourself again. And it's no different for him.
You know what's funny about this is there was Mehta put out another article where he was praising Sheldon Richardson the next day. So I kind of wonder if he's pro Richardson and not anti Wilkerson.
Can we
Here's the thing.
Can we stop with Manish Mehta? Not you. I'm saying can we just stop with Manish Mehta?
He's your boy. He ain't my boy.
The worst person ever.
Now, here's the thing about this article. This is what bothers me. It's like right now, this article is really not necessary. They literally just got on the field 2 weeks ago. Okay, and you can't sit there now and say that, he takes plays off. Every player takes plays off. Okay, it's ridiculous. But the fact is like, you know what? Let him have a good season this year. Let him see what he can do before you start putting articles like this out.
Yeah.
And praising Sheldon Richardson. I mean, this is the strength of the team, probably. It's the strongest part of the team, as far as I'm concerned, maybe next to the linebackers. Okay? So the thing is, you know what? Wilkerson had a bad year, coming off a broken leg. Maybe he didn't trust the leg well enough. I don't know. 5 sacks, not a bad year for someone like for a defensive lineman. But it's like let's see what the guy does in 2017 before we start declaring if he can take plays off or he doesn't cut it loose or doesn't go crazy all the time. That's pretty much it.
Number 6, former Met Ike Davis started his new career yesterday, which is pretty awesome for him. In the Arizona Fall League, not as a hitter or first baseman, but rather a relief pitcher. Davis, 30, reportedly had a fastball between 88 and 92 and struck out the side. This isn't Davis' first time as a pitcher. Back in 2008, he pitched 24 innings to a 2.25 ERA for Arizona State and threw a few innings for the A's back in 2015. Craig, will Ike Davis has a better career as a first baseman or a reliever for the Dodgers?
I'll say a reliever because he could have been really good, but he just, it just really went south really fast. I think he's got, judging by these stats, he's got a very good chance to be a good reliever for the Dodgers, but I get this crazy feeling that he's going to have Tommy John.
Oh, yeah.
He's definitely getting Tommy John. Come on.
Next outing.
88 to 92 miles per hour. He never threw that fast going from first base to home.
Maybe if he'd thrown that hard at Game 5.
I know, maybe we would have a chance. All right, so no, I think he has a better chance as a reliever, and I don't think it will be with the Dodgers. I think it'll be with another team. He'll be that player to be named later in a trade for the Dodgers getting a quality player. Number 7, Paulie Malignaggi has reportedly quit as Conor McGregor's sparring partner for his, quote, fight against Floyd Mayweather. The retired boxer quit after a photo of one of their sessions was posted on social media that showed Malignaggi down on the mat with McGregor standing over him. Malignaggi felt the pictures, which were released by McGregor's personal photographer, painted McGregor in too much of a positive light and claims UFC filmed all 12 rounds, which, according to the retired boxer, tell a different story. The two have been sparring on Twitter since Malignaggi quit, with McGregor saying he, quote, got his ass whooped, and Malignaggi saying, quote, he whimpers like a girl when he gets ripped to the body. Does this look worse for McGregor or Malignaggi?
Oh, McGregor. By far McGregor. Because Malignaggi's not fighting in less than a month.
And he's a good fighter.
So it looks totally bad for McGregor. But we all knew it. This isn't news. This is just, I told you so. And so, if you're after seeing all this crap, if you're still going to buy the fight, a guy who Malignaggi, when was the last time Malignaggi fought?
I think a couple years ago.
Okay, a guy who fought a couple years ago, fighting a guy who has been training like crazy for this fight, and he's whooping his can in 12 rounds? Come on.
First of all, Malignaggi was a guest today on one of the morning show on WFAN, ripping McGregor.
Of course.
He called him a dirtbag.
Oh, it's going to be brutal.
I think this looks really bad for McGregor because, first of all, Malignaggi made a good point in one of his interviews. Sparring is private. It's private. You're not really supposed to take pictures. You're not really, because it's just something they're working on. So the fact that he puts it out there and McGregor's trying to act like he knocked him out, and it would turn out to be nothing more than a push down. So in that sense, it looks really bad for McGregor. Now, Malignaggi may come off a little bit as like a baby in this whole thing, but I don't really necessarily agree with that because I think he's just a guy who's fought. He knows the ins and outs of boxing. He's a very good analyst on Showtime and those other boxing shows and everything. And the fact is he knows. But one thing he did say about McGregor is that McGregor is not he's not a joke when it comes to boxing. He is taking it seriously to an extent, but his style is different because he's not a boxer. There's no boxing experience. So that could be the one thing that could throw Mayweather off. But that being said, I think this looks a lot worse for McGregor because if you're going to get your ass whooped, just get your ass whooped and then you take it and then fight the next day. But if you're going to do stuff like that to make it seem like you know what you're doing, then the fight's just going to be even more of an embarrassment than we originally thought when they first signed the deal.
Yeah, I agree.
You all right there, man? You spacing again?
No, not spacing.
Okay.
Well, we're going to have to cut the last one. We don't have time to do it. Unless
Why?
you got time. Do you have time?
Maybe.
It's like 2 minutes until
I'll tell you
6:40.
what, we'll
You
cut
got to
it-
catch a train.
All right, we'll cut it next week, then.
Yeah, it's fine. It's good. It's about USC quarterback. It's a good one.
But we'll save it for next week.
Yeah.
And with that, closing time is unexpectedly over.
Well, that's how we do.
And this episode of the Polar Opposites podcast is over. And we'd like to thank everybody for listening as always. Check us out, polaropposites.podbean.com, as well as iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at PolarOpposites1. Next week, we'll continue our NFL preview. We'll do the NFC West, and we'll do baseball, anything we could squeeze into the podcast, and this story that didn't make the cut.
So the Rams next week.
Rams next week, which you'll probably call them the Chargers.
Chargers all week.
Okay. Once again, polaropposites.podbean.com, as well as iTunes. and on Spreaker.com, and follow us on Twitter at PolarOpposites1. Enjoy the first week of preseason games. I couldn't be more excited. Okay, enjoy the games, enjoy life, enjoy everything, and we'll talk again next week.
Bye. No injuries, Giants.